Alright, well, our next episode is called Future Imperfect. It's episode number 82 of Star Trek The Next Generation. It originally aired on November 12th, 1990. It was written by J. Larry Carroll and David Bennett Karen, and directed by Les Landau. Now, the episode begins in response to some unusual substance emissions from a planet near the neutral zone, and Commander Riker, Geordi LaForge, and Worf beam down into a cavern. Now, soon after they arrive, the volcanic gases increase to dangerous proportions, and as the Enterprise tries to beam the crew members back, all three of them pass out. Now, Riker awakens in sickbay, and Dr. Crusher asks him the last thing he remembers, and Riker replies with the events in the cavern. Crusher then shocks him when she says that was 16 years ago, and she claims he contracted a virus on the planet. Recently, the virus came out of a dormant phase and attacked. Now, the virus wiped out all the memory back to the point of contact. The crew brings Riker up to date, and he is now captain of the Enterprise, and he has a son named Jean-Luc. Riker's wife died 2 years ago, and most importantly, the Federation and the Romulan Empire are standing ready to sign an alliance. Now, Riker played a vital role in its creation, and the future is convincing to him until he sees a video of his wife, and the woman pictured in it is Minuet, who was a fantasy woman Riker experienced on a holodeck from the first season. Now, he announces that he will no longer participate in the charade, and as the surroundings fade, only the Romulan negotiator Tomalak remains. Now, Riker stands in a large holodeck surrounded by Romulans, and Tomalak takes Riker to a cell and throws him in with a human boy. It is the Jean-Luc who was apparently Riker's son in the fantasy, but he identifies himself to be really called Ethan. Now, together they escape, but a slip of the tongue by Ethan convinces Riker that the Romulan base is yet another fantasy. And finally the boy confesses. His mother built this place for him to hide from their enemies, and she equipped it with neural scanners and holographic generators to keep him company. The boy reached out to the Enterprise because of his loneliness. So Riker understands this, and he takes the boy with him, whose actual name is Barash, and they go back to the Enterprise. And that is the end of the episode. Now, I have to say there are a lot of things that I really like about this episode, and of course we have to acknowledge the great job that Jonathan Frakes does with this, because he really carries this episode, and it's really the first Riker episode that we've seen since Best of Both Worlds here. So this gives Jonathan a great chance to really shine as an actor, although he has been doing some work directing too in this season as well. So you get Riker confronted with a bunch of huge things that he thinks has happened. Number one, he's skipped 15 years on his life. He's captain of the Enterprise. He had a wife who died, and he also has a son who now it seems like doesn't know him, and he obviously has no recollection of his son. So he's coming to grips with all these things at the same time. And, I think Jonathan Frakes pulls it off great because he really expresses the full front of all those emotions and trying to deal with this. And Riker admits that he doesn't feel like he's up to doing this negotiation and this treaty with the Romulans. And obviously, if you were in the same situation, you would probably feel the same way too. So kudos to Jonathan Frakes on his performance here. I think it's really neat too to see all the different changes that go on with this episode and the redress of the Enterprise. Obviously, with this picture, you notice that the comm badges are a little bit different. Riker's obviously got a touch of gray. We see Data in a red uniform because he's now the first officer. Really interesting to see Picard becoming an admiral, and he's on a Romulan warbird now. That's something that really shocks Riker, and that's why he orders a red alert as soon as he sees that. A lot of great things here. I would also like to note that originally with this episode, the original idea was just that the idea was always that this was going to be an illusion, and this was a dream. And it also was going to be an amnesia episode. But what came later was the idea that they were going to have a double switch here. So this was going to be a dream within, not a dream, but a fantasy within a fantasy. So that, I think, was really what made it for me, because I think if they just did it, just one fantasy and that was it, it wouldn't have been as memorable. But I think the fact that you think that this is going to be the Romulans who are actually planning this, but no, it's actually the boy all along who's behind it. I'm curious, too, comment below if the first time you saw this, how soon you discovered that it was really the boy behind all of it, or if you ever did. I'm trying to remember. I've seen this episode many times, so I'm trying to remember the first time that I saw it. But I don't think I really caught on until the second fantasy, when it was with the Romulans, and obviously the boy has a slip of the tongue, and then the secret's out for everybody to see. But it took me a while to figure that out. I did know from the beginning that obviously it can't be that from here on out the show is going to be 15 years later. That would be such a huge jump. So I knew something was going to be, resolved, and I figured out, it's either going to be a dream or it's a fantasy of some kind. But the actual second fantasy, I thought that was the clever part of this episode. So, also some great lines here. I thought it was hilarious when Riker finally snaps at Admiral Picard. You never see that in the regular real time for Next Gen, so Riker giving Picard a little lip, I think, was great when he tells him to shut up and close your mouth and stop talking. And then he actually is able to turn the tables on Data. Data is able to usually come up with calculations right away, and Data has to pause, and his memory banks aren't quite what they used to be. Worf, of course, in this fantasy, is up front here in the navigator position, and he's not behind in tactical, but even Worf can't really give much detail about how he got a scar. He says it's from battle, but he doesn't know much beyond that. So, a lot of great things. Oh, we should also mention Geordi LaForge here. He no longer has his visor. He has neural implants, and I'm sure LeVar Burton really enjoyed not having to wear that, because actually the actor, when he had the visor on, it was a lot tougher for him to actually see. So this is a chance for us to really see LeVar Burton for the first time without the visor and just with his regular eyes here. And this is also the last time we see Tomalak in The Next Generation. It was great to see Andreas portray him in all these episodes. And Andreas actually said that he felt a little more out of his element with this one, because in previous episodes you see him only on the screen, and he's used to that. Now he has to take into account all his surroundings. So he's walking along the corridors, he's walking along the bridge, and Andreas Katsulas really didn't want to reprise his role much after this, because it just wasn't what he was used to doing in previous episodes. It demanded a lot more of him. And of course we see him later in Babylon 5, which he does great in that role as well. But I really enjoyed seeing him as an actor, and he was one of my favorites who was a recurring character. So we see Tomalak as a recurring character here, and also we see Minuet again from the first season. So we're continuing the theme of Season 4 of returning characters from previous episodes, and it's done very well here. So I really liked it. Hope you guys like it too. Comment below if there's anything that I missed here that you might want to point out, or something that you really appreciated about this episode. Hope you liked it too. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you guys on the next episode.